All right, joining me now is Dr. Peter McCullough. He was with us at our Ozarks Worldview Weekend, the middle of October, about the third week of October, and we have not released that keynote presentation. We're going to release it this weekend in our two-day end of the year share-a-thon as we celebrate 30 years of Worldview Weekend that came about February of 1993, and Saturday and Sunday at worldviewtube.com. This Saturday and Sunday, we'll have a lot of live special programs, including the keynote presentation by Dr. Peter McCullough. But he joins us tonight to talk about several things, including what is coming out of China with this pneumonia that is said to be impacting children. Now we hear it's spiking in Europe. Well, this, as I said earlier in the program and last night, fits with the 2017 document put out by the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security, where they said some kind of acute respiratory syndrome would occur that would have a high mortality rate or a higher mortality rate with children than any other group. They said this would happen, this SPARS pandemic. They named it after the St. Paul acute respiratory syndrome that was a fictional scenario set by missionaries bringing it back from the Philippines. A fictional scenario. Wait a minute. You mean like the fictional scenario from Lockstep, the Rockefeller document from 2010 that had a fictional scenario they set in 2012, 2 years into the future, that read like 2020 and COVID? Yeah, well, they've done it too in 2017, and it's some kind of acute respiratory syndrome that impacts children. So now they're saying that would occur 2025 to 2028. Well, I don't know. Maybe they got their date off by a year, or maybe this has nothing to do with this. I don't know. It seems kind of odd. Joining us to talk about that and more is Dr. Peter McCullough. Hello, Dr. McCullough. Thanks for being back with us.
Thanks for having me.
So what are your thoughts, Dr. McCullough, on what's happening in China with this report of pneumonia among children and now spiking in Europe?
Yeah, I was fortunate to have a firsthand report of a doctor who took care of a returning, visitor from China who had this pneumonia, returned to Brazil, was carefully examined. The answer is, it looks like this is a Mycoplasma pneumonia infection, and it's Macrolide resistant. The Chinese and Koreans have been publishing on this now for several years, and this is a form of a tiny bacteria. It gets inside human cells, and it forms a characteristic pneumonia. Now, normally we'd use azithromycin or Z-Pak and it would knock it out, but it's not going to work here. So we need to use quinolones like ciprofloxacin, moxifloxacin, or use doxycycline or other forms of tetracyclines. Now, interestingly, the case that I was aware of, the Chinese didn't have any tests for Mycoplasma, so they missed the diagnosis. So normally we've got very good rapid antigen tests. We can diagnose this quickly. So I don't think this is going to be another mystery pandemic.
Good.
The WHO is asking the Chinese what's going on. It's interesting. None of our pandemic preparedness early warning systems are going off in the United States. No word from the CDC. No word from any of the pandemic information houses in the United States.
So hopefully there'll be nothing here. But, I always get worried when they start running scenarios, like Lockstep and other things like that. In fact, you even read Lockstep. You told me when we were at the conference, you'd read it yourself, I think just right before you were with us.
That's true. So Lockstep. Now, that SPARS pandemic you're pointing out, I think that actually was pointing to COVID.
Really?
That was, yeah, it looks like it. They, had it mapped out that there was going to be a drug, I think it was called Calitra or something in that document that was hydroxychloroquine, how there was going to be controversy over this, and then they were going to drive people into mass vaccination. So I think the Johns Hopkins SPARS pandemic, that was, in fact, when COVID came out in 2020, Johns Hopkins published 2 peer-reviewed papers saying in 2017, we called it. We called it in that SPARS pandemic training exercise. In fact, it applies right here to COVID. So they kind of closed the loop on that.
Wow. Well, let's hope that's the case. Let's talk about this from your Twitter feed. COVID vaccines, the failed experiment. You said important to be direct and call for the COVID-19 vaccines to be removed from human use. And you put out this report here, or a link to this report. Tell me now, what are your conclusions? Because I think as I go down into your Twitter feed, there's a video of you, if it would load, but there's a video of you saying that the government is pushing this knowing that this is harming Americans, harming people. Did you ever think as a doctor who took a Hippocratic oath to do no harm that you would have people in the medical profession, that you'd have people in the medical field that would be knowingly doing harm to the American people like this?
Never. Never. Remember with the Pinto and the Mercury Bobcat, it was about 900 Americans who died with these gas tanks, and it was the largest auto recall ever done. The cars are taken off the market. Here, our CDC is telling us 18,000 Americans plus have died of the vaccine for sure. That's in their data system, and 1,150 die in the same day they take the shot. I mean, this is extraordinary. Now, the underreporting
Wait a minute,
can
can you back up right there for a minute? You said how many died the very first day they took the shot?
1,150.
And that's just in the U.S.
Day.
That's just in the U.S.
Yeah. That's Americans that die in the vaccine center, in the pharmacy, or right on the spot when they take the shot. I mean, this is astounding. The underreporting factor is probably about 30-fold out there. So the estimates are multiple papers. About 600,000 Americans have died of the vaccine. Worldwide, an epidemiologic paper from Dennis Rancourt from Montreal points to 17 million people worldwide have died of the vaccines. And no country has pulled it off the market. So I was being a bit critical of the Panda Group out of South Africa. That they're making a case, well, the risks outweigh the benefits. Yeah, but the conclusion is pull it off the market. I've made the call in the U.S. Senate, European Parliament, recently in the Brazilian Chamber of Deputies. And now we've got the World Council for Health has said pull them off the market, and the Association of American Physicians and Surgeons. So we have to build a chorus of individuals and institutions that are calling for removal from the market. That's the action we're asking for.
Here's one from your Twitter feed. I don't know. Maybe I think you retweeted this. Yeah, you reposted this. The scandal of how the government shut down its ethics committee after it tried to intervene on the vaccination of children. Can you tell us about that?
These are some astounding. I believe that's from the UK, but these are some astounding observations. Do you know in the clinical trials of Pfizer, Moderna, Janssen, Novavax, there were data safety monitoring boards to protect the human subjects in the trials. But as soon as they're released into this kind of open experimentation phase, no data safety monitoring board. We should have had a group that's independent from the FDA and CDC, reviewing the data once a month and independently making the call. Is it safe to continue this mass vaccination program, or should we shut it down? So they abolished all the ethics committee. In the United States, we have an Office of Human Research Protections, OHRP. They've been completely silent on this. I wrote them very early on in the pandemic. I said, where are you? We need protection on safety with these new vaccines. No response.
Wow. I had a medical doctor call me today. It's one that has proven to be a very good source for the last 2+ years. Sees a lot of patients and was telling us things early on what he was seeing with his vaccinated and unvaccinated patients. He's very much against the shot. He's very much in agreement with you and Dr. Thorpe and Dr. Witcher and so many of the other professionals we have on here. He called me today to say, Dr. McCullough, that he, like many doctors, and I'm sure you'll probably receive these yourself, gets surveys in the mail and can be offered $30, $50, $100 if they will complete the surveys. And he says that surveys that he's now been receiving recently lead him to believe, based on the questions they're asking, if doctors will be in favor of a schedule for vaccinations that includes a combination of, and he says this is what he believes is coming, a vaccination that would include COVID, pneumonia, and the flu in one shot. He says, I think that's what they're trying to see, how we as doctors would respond to such a vaccination, a 3-in-1 like this. What are your thoughts, Dr. McCullough?
It's a terrible idea. Remember, the COVID-19 vaccines are not fully licensed. They've never been, deemed as commercially viable products. So to combine them with, commercially bought and sold pneumococcal and influenza virus is a very bad idea. The COVID vaccines only last a few months. Remember, you got to take them every 6 months, whereas the flu and pneumococcal vaccine you take once a year. In fact, flu is once a year, pneumococcal is about once every 5 years. So the timing is off on them. And then the third reason not to do it is that when there's side effects, you're not going to know which one of the vaccines caused it.
Would the industry be so foolish as to do that?
They would, because they want to take an experimental vaccine and get it tethered to already approved vaccines and get this into widespread scheduled use in adults. And I think they will try to do it. I'm going to advise my patients not to take it. I think it's going to be a dangerous shot.
So you think that there is a real probability they would combine pneumonia, flu, and COVID into one shot? You think that's a probability?
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. I think there's going to be a goal of not only making these combination shots, but converting them all to messenger RNA, which is going to be a disaster. Remember, messenger RNA installs the genetic code for these foreign proteins, causes autoimmunity, damages the tissues. It's a complete disaster. Moderna just shut down its Epstein-Barr virus messenger RNA program because of probably autoimmune problems. And we see autoimmunity all the time with these COVID shots.
And he's saying that from what he's reading, that this will be an mRNA shot, that the three combo as well. Let me ask you in conclusion about the spike that we're hearing about in kidney cancers. This same doctor, by the way, before I go to kidney, this same doctor said he has a male patient that has breast cancer, and he knows of two other patients under doctor's supervision and care, two other patients. So he knows of three men with breast cancer. How rare is and they're vaccinated. How rare is breast cancer? And how common is it for a doctor to know of three male patients with breast cancer at one time?
Well, it's less than male breast cancer is less than 1% of all cancers, so that's very rare. But I want to point out that a recent paper by Anguis and colleagues have basically made the case that the COVID vaccines have met the multi-hit hypothesis for cancer. Sutherland and Baylor in 1984 published this concept that for a product to cause cancer, it has to do it via multiple mechanisms. First mechanism, the vaccines knock down the P53 and BRCA tumor suppressor systems. By the way, P53 governs renal cancer. So we don't have our own ability to snuff out early cancers. That the messenger RNA impairs DNA repair, and the Chinese have published that. And then lastly, now it's been found that Pfizer and Moderna contain cDNA, little DNA fragments in the manufacturing process that contain SV40, promoter, enhancer, and the origin of insertion. SV40 is a known promoter of cancer in people with proto-oncogenes. So in fact, the vaccines have fulfilled this hypothesis that in some people, they could cause cancer.
Now, I know of two people, at least two, I know for sure, I could name them, I'm not going to. One of them has passed away, sadly. But I have two friends, and one has passed away, that both have had the shot and have ended up with cancer of the kidney, the size of tumors, the size of small grapefruits. Those are two people that I know. But then I have other friends who say, hey, I have a friend who has kidney cancer. I have a friend I have a family member. I'm hearing so many reports from people that know people like I do that have had kidney cancer. What is the connection here? Also, the spike in stomach cancer I'm reading about among young people and blood cancers among young people. Doctor?
Yeah, it's true. Now, remember, kidney cancers are, in a sense, governed by P53, which is a tumor suppressor system. So early kidney cancer, the body can fight it off with P53. If there's already a loss of function mutation in P53, and then you take the vaccine, the S2 segment of the vaccine probably inhibits P53. That's been shown in a paper from University of Pittsburgh. So when people develop kidney cancer, it goes very quickly. I have a personal colleague who's now died of rapidly progressive kidney cancer. I've got a couple of patients in my practice. I'm pretty convinced that it's related to taking one or more of the COVID vaccines.
And then in conclusion, Doc, what do you say about this? Because these have been flying out the door. You're the CEO of the wellness company. I think it was the CEO, told me that our organization is the third on the list of organizations moving more of these. So there's two other organizations that are moving more than I am, but I'm number 3 in the number of people moving these. Yesterday, let's see, we had the Thanksgiving break. So obviously I was off Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I didn't get back on the air till yesterday, but before I even went on the air, after being off Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, yesterday morning, all of these orders were coming through that we were seeing for this. And I'm like, what is, I haven't even been on the air for 4 days. What's going on? I don't know. But the last 48 hours, the number of people that are grabbing this wellness kit has spiked. I don't know why, but I got 4 for my family. Now, this is from the wellness company. What can you tell our audience about this medical emergency kit? Because I talk about it all the time, but they'd rather hear about it from you.
Well, remember the medical emergency kit is 1 kit per person, and that's an adult kit, but it's a powerful formulary of medicines that's going to help you. In fact, that contains the medicine we would treat the Chinese pneumonia with if it comes over, and it probably will. It's going to protect you against infections, such as bronchitis, pneumococcal pneumonia, a dog bite where you have a deep tissue wound, a bladder infection, a yeast infection. And it comes with a guidebook. And if you need it, you can certainly have the doctor in a telephone consultation guide you through it. But people are sick and tired of going to urgent care, spending $1,000 to get a prescription and then go to a pharmacy. People are sophisticated enough. They can figure this out. And with COVID, they learn they need to protect themselves. So the wellness company emergency kit, there's also a separate COVID kit. People are stocking up on it right now because I tell you, people are fed up. They were burned during this pandemic and they want some help. Wellness company, I'm proud I'm the chief scientific officer of the company on a part-time basis. I've advised them on this. I think they really have brought a solution to the market. And you guys have, Worldview Tonight's huge audience. You've done a great job, and so you deserve all the promotional credit.
Well, thank you for that, Doc. And promote your book, promote your website, please.
Well, make sure my personal website is petermcculloughmd.com. It'll take you everywhere. Our book, Courage to Face COVID-19, banned for 12 days in October from Amazon, is back. Amazon could not tell us where there was offensive content. It was a feigned attempt to try to hurt me or have reprisal against me. And my podcast is America Out Loud Talk Radio McCullough Report. Substack is Courageous Discourse. And like you, I'm on multiple channels bringing people the scientific truth. I was ahead of the story on the Mycoplasma Chinese pneumonia, ahead of the CDC. The mistake we made in COVID-19 is we sat back and we waited for government authorities to tell us what to do. No mas.
Wow. Okay, so give me the one website where they can find all of those great resources and platforms. Is it the Peter McCullough website?
Yeah, petermcculloughmd.com.
petermcculloughmd.com. petermcculloughmd.com. Oh, thank you so much for making time for us. I know you're busy. Sorry that we were running a little behind tonight. I hated to cut off a guy that had gotten tied up and a bandana put on his face and hauled off at gunpoint. So I hated to interrupt him, but I knew you were in the wings waiting. So thank you for your patience.
Okay, Brandon. Be good.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.